looks like...
Yep.
We'll stick with it.
Faker playing Aurelia in
boy.
game number 1.
Woo.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's very nice to see. I'm excited. And, you know, here on the side of GENG, it is going to be, you know, once again, some scaling when it does come to BDD and Ruler, but also we do have the Kennen and the Lee Sin alongside a Thresh to be huge playmakers. They don't have a huge amount of hard engage, but if they can make it work with something like an Emperor's Divide, maybe they could get something going.
And that is something that GENG is going to have to fix. And when you fall behind against this T1 comp, which happens to a lot of teams when they're playing against T1, it's going to be really hard. As you pointed out, the lack of hard engage can be fixable when you have a decent amount of map control, but when that's gone, Faker is 1v1 pushing in a side lane, and the poke is flying around. It can be very hard to navigate this into the mid game. On the other hand, it's a lot of comfort for GENG, and we've seen when it comes to comfort and GENG, they are very often much further ahead of the power curve than you'd expect them to be, knowing the limits of the specific champions so incredibly well.
Yeah, so here we go. We're in game number 1. GENG versus T1, and again, I just hope it goes more than 3 games. Even a 3-1 is okay. I'd like a 3-2. This is the big rivalry going back, way back, even when it was before GENG, when it was Samsung, when it was SKT back then. And here we are in the current era. GENG up against T1.
Still as exciting a matchup as ever. And no level 1 shenanigans coming in here for either team. Not wanting to really take the risk, which is understandable. Don't think that in the first game in a best of 5 you necessarily need to. I personally like it, you know, immediately try and catch your opponent off guard, but definitely safer not to do so. As take a look at the runes here, Rascal going for the Airy, which has been a more popular choice for the topside cannon. Favor of phase rush that we used to see a lot. BDD also going for his lethal tempo, and that's actually Ruder as well, like a pretty big switch up. We've seen BDD mostly go for the comets. As a nice play from Life, the nice carrier that crashed down.
Yeah. And you can see here, this is actually first pick for 3 members of T1. We're seeing Kana play Renekton for the first time. I think part of that is the fact that Renekton has moved into the mid lane quite a lot in recent times, but also Faker and Keria playing new stuff here with the Aurelia for Faker and Rel for Keria.
A really nice job keeping control of this brush early on, making Ruler and Life's life a lot easier, able to stack up a big wave early on here and take control of this lane. Wonder whether they want to turn it into some vision or just try and get some more harassing, which is how it's looking like now. Owner pathing towards topside. Wonder what the lane state is going to be for Rascal, whether that's going to be a bounce that Kana can find or whether Rascal's just going to be safe farming underneath his turret, because he should be trying to keep the waves close possible with his jungler pathing towards bot side. Should mean that both junglers can go for the scuttle without running into one another.
Yeah. The Aurelia here, going to have some pretty nice sustain. I think she can deal very nicely with the amount of poke that the Azir can put on, especially with her ability to just Q onto the minions from range. You don't have to take harass as you get close to the wave. Now, BDD has played 81 games of Azir in the LCK. Alone. This guy, he loves his Azir. And yeah, I was calling for the Syndra, but when it comes to comfort, there's nothing better than BDD playing Azir. As we're not going to talk about that, we're going to talk about Renekton Italy as the flash comes in and Owner picks up first blood, gets the heal in, and a couple of ranged minions are trying to be a little bit cheeky, but they cannot take down the Nidalee.
And that's the power of Renekton Nidalee early, really nicely set up, showing why that combo remains such high priority within the LCK. Not a lot to be done there for Rascal, unfortunately, with the empowered stun coming through from Kana. Nothing he can really do. Owner barely surviving, but barely surviving is good enough when there is no recourse available.
Oh.
Auto trading early on here in this bot lane.
Yeah.
It's around, but not really an opening for him as Owner makes his way to bot side again.
Yeah, and Here we go. Life this time going to get aggressive again. The Ignite comes in, but it is a setup. Immediate flash away from Life as he sees the enemy jungler. And Clid does come down, and no action will be followed up on, but Keria did get extremely low in the trade.
And it is action all across the map. Owner trying to look for a play here, but due to Clid's presence still there, not actually opportunity to capitalize on anything. Top side, obviously, a very nicely set up dive. The one upside for Rascal was that the wave that was at his turret was partially cleared already. It wasn't an immense wave that he missed out on. Timing from Owner was a little bit later than it could have been. If it is entire waves that go into the turret there, you're going to be a really large deficit. Now, still really have to respect to Renekton, as Faker's like, no, I don't, doesn't even have his Vamp Sept yet, not even full build, and can just shrug off any heroes that comes through. And I think that's also why we've seen BDD go for this lethal tempo, which in a team fight setting, obviously going to provide you a lot higher DPS, but it does mean that you kind of forego a lot of the laning pressure that the Azir can have.
We're going to look here at this gank. Let's go for it, he says.
끝. 살만해.
Got him. I think I'll live.
제가 올게.
Yeah, he's gonna go home. And yeah, pretty straightforward. I mean,
not even close.
they were confident, you know, they got it done, and the farm here for Owner on top of finding the time for a gank is quite fantastic. And even just coming up here and throwing a spear, it's just going to put the fear of the gank into the flashless Rascal and take some more power out of this lane.
Clid just making sure, keeping his top lane body safe, as Faker doesn't get baited in, especially...
well, you say that, but actually he does. The Vanguard's Edge comes in, and now he's trying to escape onto the minions, and even... through that damage, he will survive. Doesn't even have to flash. Totally calculated, says Faker.
High risk that I think you needed to take, considering that there was indeed a Squire's Bloom popped by Clid. Should be no surprise that there is a jungler on the enemy top side, but yeah. Faker goes in regardless. Doesn't actually have to pay anything besides his ultimate cooldown, so in the end does get away with it. A little bit of a risk, but in the end, not something that he has to pay for considerably. Teleport back to lane now, which means that Ruder and Life can feel a little safer. But whereas Rascal used his teleport to get back to the lane after that gank, Kana has not had to do so. And that provides a possible situation where if there is a fight around a Drake, for example, it can be really hard for GENG to have the appropriate amount of people there, especially a pick like Cannon that you really want in the early skirmishes, provided his... Slicing Maelstrom is up because it gives you so much more power even early on in the game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the power of Renekton Italy as well. You can kind of take a champion out of the game, and even if it doesn't scale extremely well, you can get so much momentum behind you. You get so much tempo in the early game that it's like, well, it doesn't really matter what the enemy team is doing if we just get so far ahead that they can't catch up, right? So you can see the power here, and now with Faker having a very clean lane as well. He's even able to push lanes, roam around, continue to get pressure on the top side of the map. We got this Rift Herald spawning in just a moment, so T1, they do like the Rift Heralds and might be looking to make a play around this eventually.
Clid on a ward. No, he's there. Also saw him throw down the Q, but not able to actually get the blue off. Nice steal there using the prio that they have available as T1. And this is something that T1 has done very diligently as BDD.
This time Faker will flash. And that does show respect to, of course, I mean, there was a ward there, so he has full information that, yep, just gotta be safe this time and flash away.
And I like this from GENG. I think that they have a lot more power available to them due to Faker's flash being used and the roam that comes through. He needs to let this wave get shoved in. The entirety of T1 is also roaming though, and their skirmishing power is considerable if they can set up with either good poke or a big ultimate, but you gotta respect GENG as well. A lot of ultimates available for them.
T1 sprinting up to this fight, and let's see it. Keria's just gonna jump on in, but the box is getting so much value to Slicing Maelstrom as well. As here we go, frontlining are a bunch of these members of T1, but they can't get any kills. As Clid is in the backside threatening everybody. Owner not quite able to assassinate there in the front line, and here comes BDD as well. Kana doing a good job frontlining, but can't actually get anyone. Finally, they do pick off one, but at the end of the day, GENG get a bunch of kills plus the Rift Herald.
Cool, it's a close one. And in the end, it is GENG that wins out on it, and it goes back to what we mentioned. Yes, this is a Zir, this is a Phelios, but don't fall into the trap of thinking that GENG won't teamfight you with this style of comp. They most definitely will. And this was fully known to T1, who still opted into it. You still see some of the moments from T1, but I think their comp works much better when they don't have to engage in a full-on 5v5. Even though they're okay engaging carrier, the lockdown that's available, and a really good exhaust on the cannon, you see that their burst is immaculate, but if they don't immediately blow someone up in the longer fights, they're gonna kind of get out-traded. Ruder also really good weapons for that point in time. While this was happening, by the way, didn't catch this on the first try, GENG also got the Herald, right? Yep. And really nice snipe from Teddy, but between the Herald, favorable trade in terms of kills, and getting your teamfight comp on even footing after an early gold lead of, I think it was around 800-900 gold from T1, you're going to be very happy as GENG.
Yeah. And you know, sometimes this can happen when you get to a fight late, you feel very forced to force a fight, and it comes down to Carrier flashing in level 5, goes for the crash down, straight into a choke against Cannon and Aphelios and Azir, right? It's they're sitting in a concave, they're in a position to potentially do more damage than you, and sometimes you feel like you have to force it, as we're having a little bit of ring around the rosy.
Alcove game.
Definitely pretty fun, but yeah, you got to be careful. And you know, I was surprised actually that both teams really forced extremely hard onto the Rift Herald, but T1 wanting to keep up their momentum, and GENG, after getting Faker's flash, they felt strong enough to do it with the early roam from Cryo from the bottom side. So it kind of makes sense when you see what was happening in the game, but there was also the potential for Ruler to just sit bot, get a couple of plates by himself as the Aphelios crescendo. Didn't end up seeing that, and that means we do get more action.
And this is the unfortunate reality of being Rascal. As
okay, this time you don't have your flash, but he is Aurelia. Gets the stun onto Clid, as now he is going to jump in the back, and here comes Life and Ruler as well. So at the end of the day, Faker just left a little bit out to dry. Nobody here on the side of T1, and GENG are going to get a lot of value here in the mid lane.
Yeah, and T1. The one upside of this is that, of course, T1 was able to find a plate on top side, so it's somewhat mitigated, but the kill on Faker, second time this has happened, and BDG is clearly saying, yeah, nice Aurelia pick, but as long as you don't have flash, I will shuffle you into my team. And there's not a lot of counterplay available as Kana pops Dominus.
Yeah, looking to get in there. The Lightning Rush used as the Slicing Maelstrom, not going to break through the Dominus, but he has another Lightning Rush, and Kana can't quite catch up. So it will be the Q that comes in, and Kana will be pushed away.
And it's okay, you put some pressure down, but it doesn't really get you a lot more than that, as what do? It's the problem of being Aurelia flashless into this Zeus. Clid preemptively jumping back in an attempt to kick back Faker in case he did actually make it a little bit further.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot that you can do. The one thing, of course, that Faker was aware that they were coming. Herald was coming down, still standing pretty far up, and gets punished immediately as some first spikes are starting to come through. And T1 is still in a position where they can set up around objectives, right? Where they are able to, if they land the poke, the fight, the approach for GENG can become difficult to a point that it is impossible for them to actually walk up to objectives. But with how much control GENG have early on here already, I'm kind of worried. Like, Ruler and Life had a perma prio basically the entire game. It's also why this Rift Herald play works out, right? Because Teddy and Carrier are later. They're shoved into their turret. They need to clear the way first before they can roam up.
Oh, by the way, feel like I've seen this before. Not sure exactly where. Faker uses his flash, but he's still dead. And now he's 0-3. So all that excitement for Faker's Aurelia, it slowly begins to go out the window.
That can't begin, and it's working. Nothing to be done here. Again, you see on cooldown, literally, BDD goes in, uses his ultimate, and the problem with this is that without the Aurelia, T1 loses so much pressure in the middle of the map because it is the Aurelia that brings an incredible amount of damage. And power in these sustained fights, right? These 2v2s, these 3v3s, that's where the champ traditionally excels. When it comes to straight up 5v5s we saw earlier today, or earlier in the fight, it doesn't really provide as much if your opponent are ready. They can see if a fresh can position, throw down a box, have a flay, Lee can kick you out. And yep, just off to the side.
Yeah. Faker has flash here. He decides to use it later, and it does not pay off. You can understand the frustration. You don't want to feel like, oh, I have to flash again, like he got his ultimate up again. This is like quite literally off cooldown. He is going for these
100%.
plays.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, we don't really have an answer unless owner spends more time in the mid lane. That's really what it comes down to, I would suppose.
And the problem is, even then, like, you're going to be relying on hitting a flawless duet on a BDD and a clip with a lot of mobility and flash, right? Because that 2v2 I think is good, but with Faker already being taken down so low before the fight has properly started, I don't know what you can really do in Tier 1. These continuous kills, in of itself are not enough, but they slow down the game, right? Like, GENG now has a 1k gold lead, and with the composition, with the amount of teamfight prowess and scaling that they have, it's always going to be terrifying if you are T1. Upside for T1 is that while I think that comp in 5v5 doesn't scale that well, in terms of raw damage, it definitely does. If you can set up, but I don't think going for a Rift Herald when the entirety of GENG is there is a good call.
No, and here comes BDD. I don't even know if they saw this teleport. Here we go again. The flash comes in, predictive, and he's going to get Teddy. And how about a perfect follow-up on the death sentence? Now we got a couple people coming in, but owner's going to get kicked in. No follow-up damage, but that is going to be fine. As now coming in here is Rascal looking for the follow-up kill, and GENG are just running T1 around the map here in game number 1. Kana might survive with the help of the blast plant, but still so much value straight goes into the pockets of GENG.
And that is more kills going to GENG, a second Herald going to GENG. And sure, the second Herald not always the best, you know, not always the most valuable, not always worth giving a lot up for, but if you get an amazing trade as well, who cares? This predictive flash from BDD, knowing that Teddy's going to flash as well. The hook from Live, who honestly hasn't had the greatest half of the split, but has looked impeccable on this fresh in this series. And in the attempt at turning it around on Clid, not working out at all, Rascal being very nicely positioned. And to add insult to injury, there is a teleport from Faker by the end of that.
TP, go for Varus. Follow me, no flash, no flash. Rel is what he said after that. And everybody's happy on the side of GENG. I mean, things are going swimmingly outside of the first gank onto Rascal. That's really the only place that T1 got a lot of value in this game.
Yep. It's classic GENG. Everything from letting Rascal, like just letting him die repeatedly, to get leads on the rest of the map, right?
Yeah.
Clid in particular on this Lee has had an incredible game. 100% kill participation, and while I think it's been both him and BDD that have been the hard carries.
Oh yikes!
Does he know?
Yeah,
they spotted them on the wall there.
Yeah.
So they definitely do know, as you can see as well. Collapse attempted, but not actually working out.
Oh, he actually hit him! And now we have the blast plant, and owner is just done! As he does not have his flash, and BD picks up his third kill. 303 in this one, and just gifted it by Life, who's also having a fantastic game. GENG really running on all cylinders here in game 1.
It's getting ugly, Valdez.
Yeah.
This is attempts from T1 to salvage a relatively subpar situation, which I don't mind, but if you're not able to get full control, ensure 100% that you are not on vision, then it's risky, but still manageable. But if Life then also hits hooks like that, then gets the hook, follows it, blast cones you back, basically taking away any avenue of counterplay. It is so rough, and this is something that I think we've seen GENG do so much, and they kind of lost this touch. And that's why in the second half of summer, they didn't look that good. But when GENG are firing on all cylinders, they can make late game scaling characters look like early game powerhouses.
Yeah.
And individual plays like this, punishing overextensions and attempts from T1 to try and punish someone face-checking a brush. Now BDD is getting more and more fed. 3-0 and 3. Brawler sitting on level 11, about to finish his collector as well.
Yeah.
And oh my god, that mid-gap lead.
Yeah, 2,000 gold.
Wow.
And it comes down to a lot of plays, like there was the fight over the Rift Heralds. It got GENG a pretty nice lead, but it wasn't gigantic. It was definitely, there was an ability for T1 to come back after that, of course. But then after that, it was just like pick after pick after pick. It was very simple, straightforward. BDD getting multiple Embers divides, and Life landing some big hooks. And really, that was it. I mean, really nice teleport from BDD as well. We don't really even get to see too much macro play because GENG just found a lot of straight up, you know, kills in this game. And yes, T1 were able to get that one Ocean Drake. But other than that, GENG full control of this game right now. The Baron just spawning, and GENG are already controlling vision around this objective.
Doesn't want to go for it, as I don't think he should. And as T1, with the deficit you find yourself in now, you're going to be reliant on GENG making mistakes. And I think it should boil down to something like Rascal BDD being too far up, pushed up in the side lane. Because when it comes to individual power, this T1 comp still packs a lot of punch, right? If you can lock someone down, hit a spear, find a Renekton stun, and blow them up within the duration of that, you can fight on uneven footing. Even then it will be hard, because you're playing into a fed Phalios and a fed Azir, which is never fun. But there at least there's a possibility. But if GENG play it out clean, they don't overextend. I say his Faker might be looking for the punish. If he doesn't find the backer, he's the one who's getting punished. We'll see it on Vision, so maybe a collapse here.
Okay, we might have the Aurelia flank. Life in an awkward position here. The teleport is coming in. There's only 3 members of GENG right now. We got Baron going on, I believe, as Azir, BDD, and Clit are doing Baron. Ruler and Rascal get away, and yes, Life will go down. But take a look at this. And now you just teleport up to the top side. And what are you going to do, send in Faker alone on his teleport? No, of course not. Doesn't look like they have any idea. And GENG, they sacrificed their support for a Baron at 21 minutes.
You'll take that trade, Valdez. That is... That's a good trade deal right there. Able to only give up Life, who, with his dying breath, flays back the minion wave just to make sure that there's even less for T1 to do. And what do you do? Right? The power of this Azir, this early on, when he's this fed, him and Lee able to sustain for the damage that Baron does, then just to make sure that everything goes well. Rascal also teleporting over in case that Faker tries to go for a hero play. And if you got Soul point here, as T1 maybe you'll feel a little bit better about it, but one, it's the Cloud Soul.
The Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas here, back again at the LCK on Summoner's Rift. And then in addition to that, GENG got a Drake. Of course. Well, you think he'll watch the series? I don't know. It's only the semi.
Yeah, you know, I think so.
I'd say
so. Yeah, probably.
And you see the moment that this collapse comes through, like you see the pings go down. And the unfortunate reality is that the moment that this teleport from Kana comes through also takes away any possibility that you have of possibly contesting.
Here we go. Carrier's got a nice little engage. That's a lot of damage, but BDD survives! Oh, I say that, and then he does die, actually. The shutdown does go the way of the Nidalee. Clit, not the best forward standing position here, nearly dies himself. Keep in mind that GENG did not have their cannon, so at the end of the day, that is a pretty nice trade here for T1, taking down the shutdown of BDD at least.
Pretty sure BDD walks on the trap there, which is the most unfortunate way to die. Would love to see that in the replay. Also, how that fight started. Little overextension from GENG, but in the end they trade 1-for-1. They lose Azir, which is unfortunate, but doesn't stop them from still picking up. And this goes back to these Baron power plays that GENG excels at. 3K in the lead now, as they just get over. Rascal doesn't have teleport.
Great reaction from Teddy.
Yeah, really nicely done. And it's still salvaged, which is kind of nice. But in the end, it's not going to be very eventful for the actual course of the game. Still pick up the side, the turret in the side. There's no ability from T1 to take up more than a single kill, and while getting the shutdown is nice and should help out Owner a little bit as he's building towards his Horizon focus, doesn't distract us from the fact that GENG have an immense lead with a composition that, while they lack hard engage, when you're playing as well as BDD is on this Azir, sure doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, he's made all the plays himself, so he's engaging somehow. Gets it down. And once again, GENG, there's no Baron here, but they're still going to just go for a little adventure through the enemy jungle. It's pretty much their jungle at this point with how far they are ahead. They're getting the red buff here now for the fed Aphelios. Still waiting on the third item, just has a BF sword for now, and a dagger. Still try to push, but you know, a couple of spears. The Nidalee still exists in this game, and it looks like he was able to pick up an alternator after that shutdown. And so, Owner pretty happy himself, getting a nice amount of damage done and keeping them at bay.
And here you see that even with the deficit that they find themselves in, there's still some of the power left that this T1 comp has. I think the bigger issue is it's not going to be Owner and Teddy. I think they will still, as you can see, bring out a lot of damage if they, provided they can hit their skill shots, which around objective fights shouldn't be able for them, as GENG should be able to get control of the jungle, take over the vision, and then not allow T1 to go anywhere without face checking. But I'm more worried for Kana and Faker specifically, because they have been put overall in terms of gold in a disadvantageous position. Faker not quite having that 2-item power spike yet. Kana has hit it, but normally that's a spike that is incredibly scary and provides you with so much skirmishing power until relatively deep into the game, much further than you'd expect from bruises. But then you look at Ruler and he's about to finish his next item. He's already on 2 kills. You look at BDD and then you wonder, especially into a cannon and a fresh and a lead that can just kick you away, how much can you really get done outside of some poke, which clearly also doesn't really care as much about.
Yeah. He's pretty fed. He's very high level, level 14, same as the solo laners of T1. And he hasn't died yet, which is always a nice little bonus as a jungler. Allows you more time to be active on the map. That's exactly what you want. And yeah, GENG really just biding their time. I think waiting for another big objective. They don't really have a lot of pressure on them right now when they're running Azir and Aphelios. And he mentioned how Renekton and Aurelia are not going to be too happy, especially not into Aphelios Thresh. I think Ruler is going to have his way with the Rift here as the game comes along. And looks like GENG just want to pick up this Cloud Drake, start building up Drakes of their own. Little side win condition just in case they need it. And then, of course, move on over to the Baron. I do like that T1 are moving into the Baron River as this is happening, predicting the Drake take and potentially trying to set up vision or a pick of their own.
Agree with you there. Well, spot him, but BD shouldn't be too scared with the amount of ability and his flash still available. Drake goes over. T1 makes use of the little amount of space that provides them with. And I wonder. I look at the T1 comp, and obviously it is a really rough game to come back from. Taddy is now hit his 3-item spike. Went for Muramana and Serpent's Fang first before he actually finishes Mythic. Doesn't know has the Dustblade available. And Serpent's Fang obviously really nice into the amount of shielding that's available between Lee and Azir having shields of their own, and then the shield bow shield fresh with a lantern, providing a lot more value there. But that still doesn't answer the question of how much can Kana and Faker get done, because while the poke is nice, it can only provide setup, and if that setup doesn't lead to an actual payout harvested by presumably either Faker or Kana, it's going to be incredibly hard. And I think the real threat is that you can't deal with just one person on GENG. I think Rascal is the least threatening, but even he provides considerable damage. I say as
what is going on with this cannon right now?
Never mind, I retract my, sorry Rascal, I see the error of my ways. You are also a threat. So yeah, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
That's, everyone is terrifying.
Yeah, it's crazy what cannon can do with 3 items, just a shuriken and a W away.
Now what?
And yeah, I mean, it's Aphelios And it's Azir as owner trying to get in. Klid says no to that. Immediately kicks, and now, you know, why not just take an objective? We got the crash down to the Magnet Storm, though, as the stopwatch is huge to keep life alive. And it doesn't look like they have enough damage, although you see Kana's trying to get it done. Teddy with a nice couple of moves, but Ruler is the real problem here. He's still alive with full health, full mana, and even BDD is going to live after his own Zhonya's. And now they can just waltz down the mid lane and do whatever they want.
And they get the Baron, they get the fight, and I don't think that T1 is going to be able to recuperate from this one. Don't know if they can quite end. Might be a possibility here. It's only owner and carrier that are going to be up, and they go for turrets very quickly. With BDD's helper as low as it is, maybe they want to go back. Do see some pings on the red buff, so I think that GENG is going to play it safer. And honestly, why wouldn't you? If you see the amount of dominance that they have, and even though this is a gorgeous engage from carrier here, it ties into the issue that we set up earlier. It doesn't matter if you don't get everyone. And the only one that you really get here, or yeah, it's nice that you get Klid, that life goes low immediately, but Rascal can ult immediately Zhonya's. Ruler, not afraid at all. BDD, not hit at all. And as long as those two stay alive with some semblance of the Klid or the Fresh in terms of defense, there's no play.
Yeah, he wanted the quadra kill. He's like,
how dare you?
Took it away.
That's mine.
I love how he knows exactly how many kills he's getting.
It's you know how it's like bullet counting, but Rascal is that with, or Ruler rather is it with the kills. Yeah. You know, as soon as he gets the first one, the counting starts, and he won't be happy until he's hit 5. Got it, that benchmark, and now sieging with this composition, a lot of range available for GENG. Gonna use these cannon waves, mid pushing in already. And I don't know how you can defend their ST1 if that last engage from carrier, beautiful as it was, wasn't enough. I don't know if anything is going to be Valdez.
Yeah, I mean, your only real option is you have to catch Ruler and blow him up, I would imagine. And then, even then, Rascal and BDD do so much damage at this point that, yeah, maybe you need all 5 of them. As, okay, Fakery's gonna find a little angle here on the Klid, just gets kicked immediately into all the damage of GENG and just gets punished. Tries to recreate the BDD flank, doesn't quite work out as well when you're this far behind. As, yeah, GENG's gonna push on in and are looking to take down the Nexus turrets. That Moonlight Vigil, we'll just pretend that didn't happen. Ruler's had a good game outside of that one maneuver. As the play is here, the Magnet Storm does nothing, and Teddy, he can't even win against the Sand Soldiers right now. As in we go, Rascal diving, trying to go for a little bit of mental warfare. He's, of course, got 2 stasises ready to go for the dive, and GENG clean up very swiftly and easily.